I want to talk about armor upgrades in co-op, specifically when you should be getting them and when you should not. Right off the bat, I want to say that this video is aimed towards co-op players that want to optimize their co-op gameplay. If you're simply playing co-op for fun and just want to have a good time, then this video might not have as much value to you. One side note here is that the shield upgrades operate in the same way as armor upgrades do. So if you're playing a Protoss Commander, whenever I'm going to talk about armor here, it pretty much applies to shields as well. Fun fact, the shield is actually referred to as shield armor in the editor. Now, a lot of co-op players have ladder experience, and armor upgrades have their place in ladder games. I cannot really comment very much on ladder games because I really do not have any experience, but armor in general is really important there. However, in co-op, the armor upgrades are less useful. There are exceptions, and I will go over those in a little bit, but general rule of thumb is armor upgrades and shield upgrades not very useful in co-op. I think the best place to start would be to talk about how damage is calculated in the game. The exact damage calculation formula is reasonably complex, but I want to talk about just the basic aspects of it, and I'm going to show you the general formula here. Now, the thing to note over here is that armor is applied to every single attack. Whenever a unit attacks, the armor is applied to the damage it is dealing. So even though two units might have the same DPS, you can see that on the Starcraft II Coop.com data tables, for example, you might see that they have similar DPSs, they might actually deal vastly different amounts of damage every single time they attack. And I'm going to show you an example. So over here I have two structures, they're exactly the same. They have 150 HP, but the one thing to note here is I've given them 10 armor. Now we have over here a 0 attack upgraded Void Ray, and we have a level 3 attack upgraded Stalker. I'll put the stats up as well so you can see that the Void Ray actually has more DPS than the Stalker. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let these two guys start attacking these structures, and let's have a look and see what happens. You'll notice that the Stalkers actually cleared out the structure a lot faster than this Void Ray, who had a significantly larger amount of DPS difference. So the question is, why has that happened? The thing to note here is that this Void Ray has an attack speed of 0.5. The Stalker has an attack speed of roughly 1.5. So the Stalker attacks 3 times less than the Void Ray, but deals more damage. And as a result of the damage calculation I showed earlier, the armor keeps getting applied a lot more to the Void Ray's damage than it does to the Stalker, and therefore the Stalker is more effective at killing off the structure. Now, the reason why I bring this up is whenever you get an attack upgrade for a unit, you actually get approximately 10% increase in attack damage. The exact values kind of differs between units, and you can check out Starcraft2Coop.com's data tables for that. But a good rule of thumb is when you get a level 1 upgrade, or you get a level 2 upgrade, or you get a level 3 upgrade, you get approximately 10% increase in attack damage. Now this is not the same when you get an armor upgrade. When you get an armor upgrade, you get 1 armor. That is 1 damage only that is being reduced onto the units you have. So when Amon deals damage to you and you get an armor upgrade, basically his units deal 1 less damage to your unit. And since most units have more than 50 HP, you're not really going to get anything more than 2% reduction in damage just because you have the armor upgrade. So generally speaking, getting armor is not very useful when it comes to comparing it to something like attack upgrades. Now, in addition to all of this, I'd like you to take into consideration something else. What is your favorite unit to fight up against in co-op? Is it this guy? Or maybe is it this guy? Or potentially even this one? Or even that one? Now these guys are all spellcasters, and spellcasters actually ignore your armor value. So it doesn't matter whether you have 0 armor or if you have 100 armor on your unit, they will always deal the same amount of damage to you when they cast their skills. And the thing that makes co-op unique in this sense is that enemy bases will always have some kind of tier 3 unit. Compared to ladder, where players will have to transition up step by step and these units are very expensive, Amon has access to these units pretty much at the start of the game, and as time progresses he gets these units for free in the form of attack waves. So most of his units do end up ignoring the amount of armor that you have anyway when they cast their abilities, and they will cast their abilities on your units. So this further reduces the usefulness of armor in your army. Now, add to this the fact that most ground compositions can be spawn camped, and player armies and player units will very rarely take damage from attack waves if they are purely ground. For example, here Abathur is completely locked down this mission by putting down toxic nests all over the spawn areas. And you can see why armor upgrades are not very useful in co-op, or at least they will hold a little bit less value. So with efficient use of cooldowns, which most commanders have that can deal with such attack waves, very rarely armies will be expected to engage the attack waves directly, and as a result, you don't really need the armor upgrades very much, except when they are actually pushing into enemy bases. So the general take home here is that armor upgrades are not very useful in co-op. They're only really useful in the early stages of the game, and once you reach the late game where you have a big death ball of an army, it basically steamrolls everything in its path, and you're not really taking any damage on your units anyway. So your armor upgrades become redundant in the late game. So instead of investing your gas into armor upgrades, it's much better to invest your gas into either more units or into tech level upgrades. But as usual, there are some exceptions. So over here, we have Kerrigan, and you can see that Kerrigan's upgrades are really cheap. So you could invest in armor upgrades without really breaking the bank. And I'll be honest, I don't normally invest into the ground carapace upgrades as Kerrigan unless I'm doing Dead of Night where I'm using Zerglings. If I'm doing a Hydralisk build, I don't even go for the ground carapace upgrades. I do get them if I am going for a mass Mutalisk build, because Mutalisk usually end up face tanking some damage as you try and engage enemy bases and whatnot, and they are really squishy units, so getting the armor upgrades for Kerrigan's Mutalisks is recommended. Another example is Raynor. Raynor not only provides his infantry with armor, but it also increases their life by 10%. So in this case, the armor upgrades are not cheaper, but you're getting extra value out of them by getting the extra life and making your units a little bit more resilient. So in that case, you also want to get armor upgrades for Raynor. And likewise, I believe Tychus also has the same idea. He gives his outlaws more HP, so getting armor upgrades in that sense is also useful. In general, you want to get your armor upgrades if your armor upgrades are cheap, or you want to get your armor upgrades if your armor upgrades give you something else. So in this case, more HP, then you should probably be considering investing in the armor upgrades. Another useful point where you might want to get your armor upgrades is on minor evacuation. You can see here I'm getting not only my armor upgrades, but also my shield upgrades. And the reason for this is because you are fighting in a very confined location, and it is inevitable that you will take damage, but mostly it is the kind of damage that you are taking. You're taking small amounts of damage with a high attack speed, because the infested, they don't really have high damage output, but they just have high attack speeds. So you can use that to your advantage and take armor and shield upgrades so that you significantly reduce the impact of the infested onto your units. But even then, even on minor evacuation, it really depends on your strategy. Sometimes if you notice that the infested can't even walk up to the army before dying, then you are probably not going to find any value from getting such upgrades. So the last scenario where I can think of where you'd want to get your armor upgrades is on a mission like Missed Opportunities. You see here I'm getting my armor and my shield upgrades. And that is basically because this mission is just really long. and you normally end up very bored if you have managed to all clear. You can see we've all cleared this mission at around the 18 minutes, so you might as well just get your armor upgrades and further how ahead you are in the course of the game. But I hope that this video gives you an idea as to why armor upgrades are not as useful as one might think when you start off playing, and give you an idea as to when you should actually be investing in your armor upgrades and when you should not.